are worth 1 point. Knights are worth 3 points. Bishops are also worth 3 points, however they are widely considered to be slightly better than knights, especially in an open position. Rooks are worth 5 points, queens are worth 9 points, and the king is worth infinite points. If you lose him, it means checkmate. So, trading your bishop for a rook gains you 2 points. That's called winning the exchange. Sacrificing your queen for a rook would mean you're down 4 points. But remember, material isn't everything. Sometimes sacrificing material for a winning attack is brilliant, but generally being up material means you're winning. Now let's learn the tactic weapons that will help you win that material. A fork is when you're attacking 2 or more pieces simultaneously. Your opponent can only save 1. The knight fork is the most famous, jumping to attack the queen and the king at once. The king must move to get out of check, and you can capture the queen. Knight forks may look like this, but if the 2 pieces are on any of these red squares, it's a fork, as seen here, here, and here. Pawns and bishops can also fork diagonally, like so, or like so. So here's how to spot it. Look for squares where one piece can attack multiple targets at once. The way to defend against it is to keep valuable pieces separated. Don't stack your king and queen where an enemy knight can reach both in one jump. Ultimately, you just have to slow down and pay attention to your opponent's moves and positioning. Pins. The pin immobilizes a piece because moving it would expose something more valuable behind it. There are 2 types of pins. An absolute pin is when the piece literally can't move because it would expose your king to check, which is illegal. This is an example of an absolute pin. The other type is a relative pin, where moving the piece loses material. A bishop can pin your knight to your queen. You can move the knight, but you'd lose the queen. Pinned pieces become targets. Attack them with pawns or other pieces because they often can't escape. The way to spot it is to look for enemy pieces lined up on files, ranks, or diagonals. The way to defend against it is to never line up your king and queen. If pinned, break it by blocking, attacking the pinner, or moving the back piece. Skewers. The skewer is a reverse pin. You attack a valuable piece, forcing it to move and exposing a piece behind it. Classic example is your rook attacking the king. The king must move, and then you're able to capture the queen behind it. Bishops, rooks, and queens create skewers along their lines of attack. The way to spot it is very similar to a pin. Look for valuable pieces in front of other pieces on the same line. The way to avoid it is to not line up pieces with the more valuable one in front. Double attacks. Double attacks means attacking 2 things at once. It's the general category that includes forks. The queen excels at this, since she moves in 8 directions. She can threaten checkmate while simultaneously attacking a loose rook. The way to spot it is before moving, check everything that the piece will attack from its new square, not just your primary target. The way to avoid it is to keep pieces on different ranks, files, and diagonals. Don't cluster valuable pieces. X-ray attacks. An X-ray attack is a tactic similar to a pin or a skewer where a piece exerts pressure on an opponent's piece, even when another piece is in between them on the same line. This one is a little bit complex and has a couple variations, so we won't spend too much time on it. In this example, white has an X-ray attack from its queen through the black pawn on e2 against the black queen. The rook is able to capture the queen on f1 because that square is protected by an X-ray attack. The way to spot it is look beyond the first piece in a line. What's behind it? The way to avoid it is be aware of pieces that are lined up. Capturing one piece might activate a more dangerous piece behind it. Trapped pieces. Trapped pieces have no safe squares. A knight in the corner or a bishop blocked in by its own pawns. These pieces can't escape. Once a piece is trapped, you can often capture it with a pawn or a lower value piece, winning material. The way to spot it is look for enemy pieces with limited mobility, especially on the edges of the board. The way to avoid it is to develop your pieces early and keep escape squares available. Knights need open squares, bishops need open diagonals. Discovered attacks. A discovered attack allows you to move one piece, revealing an attack from a piece behind it. In this example, your knight moves and suddenly the rook behind it is attacking the enemy queen. Since you can move the knight anywhere, you essentially get a free move while threatening the queen. The way to spot discovered attacks is to look for pieces lined up behind other pieces, aiming at valuable targets. The way to avoid them is to track what's behind your opponent's pieces. That innocent knight may be hiding a rook attack. Discovered checks. A discovered check is simply a discovered attack that reveals a check. This is devastating because the opponent must respond to the check, while the piece you moved is able to act without consequence. In this example, moving your knight reveals check from your bishop, and your knight can capture the queen for free. They're too busy dealing with the check. The way to spot a discovered check is to look for pieces behind other pieces that could give check if the front piece is moved. The way to avoid them is to never ignore pieces lined up towards your king. If they have a piece in front, moving it could be lethal. Double checks. A double check is when two pieces give check simultaneously, usually through a discovered check where the moving piece also gives check. This is the most forcing move in chess. Your opponent can only move the king, they can't block two checks, and capturing one piece leaves them still in check. Double checks can often lead to checkmate because the king has so few options. The way to spot a double check is to look for discovered check possibilities where your moving piece can also give check. The way to avoid them is to keep your king safe from multiple attacking pieces. If two enemy pieces aim near your king, move your king or reposition another piece to help. Removing the defender. Removing the defender means eliminating the piece protecting your target. In this case, a knight defends a bishop. By capturing the knight, the bishop will fall next move. Sometimes removing the defender involves a sacrifice. In this example, you trade your bishop to remove the knight, allowing you to win the exchange and ultimately the game. The way to spot this tactic is to ask yourself, what is defending my target? Can you capture, chase, or pin the defender? The way to avoid it is to use multiple defenders for key pieces and squares. Don't allow for trades on your defending pieces. Deflection. Deflection forces a piece away from its defensive duty. A classic example is sacrificing your queen to deflect the enemy rook from the back rank. After the rook captures your queen, your rook delivers checkmate on the undefended back rank. This often involves sacrifices because you're forcing the opponent to capture. The way to spot it is to identify critical defenders. What happens if they move? The way to avoid it is before you capture, ask why your opponent is sacrificing a piece. Calculate the consequences. Decoy. Decoy lures a piece to a bad square rather than away from a good one. In this example, you sacrifice your queen on g1, and when the enemy queen captures it, the king is suddenly vulnerable to a skewer attack from the promoted pawn. And just like that, you're up a queen. The way to spot decoys is to look for squares that seem bad for enemy pieces. Can you force them there? The way to avoid them is before capturing, check if that square is safe. Is it on a line to your king? Does it expose you to attacks? Overloading. Overloading happens when one piece defends multiple things. If you attack both, it can only save one. In this example, a pawn is defending both a bishop and a knight. You capture the bishop, and the pawn can't defend both, so you're able to win the exchange. The way to spot it is to find pieces with multiple defensive duties. Can you create simultaneous threats? The way to avoid them is to not rely on one piece for multiple defenses. Spread defensive responsibilities. Clearance. Clearance removes one of your own pieces from a key square or line, so another piece can occupy it or use it. In this example, you sacrifice your rook so your queen can move to that square and deliver checkmate. No matter how black captures the rook, checkmate follows on the next move. The way to spot this tactic is to look for almost working tactics. Is one of your own pieces in the way? The way to avoid it is to watch for opponent sacrifices that clear lines or squares for their other pieces. Zwischenzug. Zwischenzug is a German word for an in-between move, an unexpected intermediate move in a sequence. In this position, black expects you to trade queens and then check you with their knight. Instead of taking the trade, you give check first. They must respond to the check, and then you can capture their queen. This disrupts expected sequences. Your opponent thinks they're trading queens, but Zwischenzug turns the tables. The way to spot it is before completing an expected trade, look for checks, captures, or attacks you can insert first. The way to avoid it is when attacking, check if your opponent has forcing moves, such as checks or threats, before they respond to your attack. Zugzwang. Zugzwang is a German word that means compulsion to move. It is a position where whoever's move it is worse off. Every legal move makes their position deteriorate. If you could pass or not make a move, you'd be fine. But because you must move, you lose material or lose the game. A classic example, in a king and pawn endgame, your defending king is perfectly placed. But it's your move, and the only legal move you can make lets their king pass and pawn advance. And just like that, the game is lost. Zugzwang shows up most often in endgames, where there are fewer pieces and each move matters more. But it can appear in the middle game too. The way to spot it is to look for positions where your opponent has no good moves. Every move either loses material, allows a decisive pawn break, or walks into a mating net. Simplify into endgames where you can restrict their king and pieces and then hand them the move. The way to avoid it is to keep at least one useful move waiting, like a rook shuffle or a pawn move, in reserve. Don't let all of your pieces become totally passive. If all of your moves are bad, you're in Zugzwang. In endgames, aim for active king and piece placement so you're the one putting your opponent in Zugzwang, not suffering it. Tactics aren't just about memorization.